They're a couple, and they're friends. The situation is getting awkward because there's some tension between her and him. You can feel it. And 95% of people end up making these mistakes. Here's the first mistake. Daniel and Pedro are childhood friends. They meet at a wedding and both have gorgeous girlfriends. After chatting for a while, Pedro starts feeling a little bad. He can't stop thinking that Daniel's girlfriend seems better than his. She's cheerful, pays attention to what Pedro is saying, is helpful by bringing drinks for everyone, and is super affectionate with Daniel. The funny thing is, Daniel secretly thinks the same about Pedro's girlfriend. Not exactly the same, but he does feel Pedro's girlfriend has amazing qualities his own girlfriend doesn't. He finds her comments incredibly smart and loves how elegant and cultured she seems. For both of them, the grass seems greener on the other side. They focus on all the good things about their friend's girlfriend and ignore what they have. And you know what happens next? Pedro gets drunk.
Wait! Not that part yet. You'll ruin the video. First, tell the office gossip.
You mean the married guy?
Yes. Him.
All right, but we'll come back to the wedding story. Felipe's been married 10 years. The honeymoon phase? Long gone. Now he complains about everything, from toothpaste caps to forgotten birthdays. He knows all her flaws. Meanwhile, there's a sweet new coworker. She brings him coffee, asks about his sleep, always cheerful and well-dressed. Felipe compares her best traits to his wife's worst. When he comes home tired to more nagging, the temptation grows. But we know this story. The grass always seems greener on the other side. If he left his wife, he'd find flaws in the new one too, and regret losing a partner who stood by him for a decade. It's a bias. We idealize what we don't have and criticize what we do. Anyway, back to the wedding drama. As the night unfolds, Pedro says, "Your girlfriend is amazing, so cheerful and sweet." Daniel laughs. "Try spending a whole day with her." He continues, "But your girlfriend, she is so elegant and cultured." Pedro replies, "Trust me, 24/7 isn't all sunshine." They hug and say, "The grass always seems greener on the other side." Their girlfriends overheard everything. The elegant one says, "It is always the same. At first, they treat me like a queen, but then they start taking me for granted and drooling over whoever comes along." The cheerful one replies, "Are you calling me whoever?" "Kidding. I saw your boyfriend eyeing me too." They laugh, agreeing most men fall for the illusion until it's too late. Then, grinning, they hit the dance floor together. Oh, and before I forget, there's a book I want to recommend. It's one I wish I'd read before turning 30, because it shows how small changes in your habits can completely transform your life. It's called Atomic Habits. And tie yourself to the mast. If you don't have discipline or willpower, but you're really smart, tie yourself to the mast, just like King Odysseus. This might actually save your life. Odysseus was a Greek king who fought for 10 years in Troy. And now that he was heading home victorious, all he wanted was to be with his beautiful queen Penelope again and hold his son Telemachus in his arms. But there was a problem. On the way back, he had to sail through a narrow reef that was swarming with sirens. No sailor had ever made it through because the sirens, with their singing, would make you hallucinate and see the thing you desired most on the reefs, so you'd crash your ship and get eaten alive. But Odysseus had one big strength. Besides being brilliant, he was humble. He could admit, "I don't have more discipline or willpower than anyone else. I'd fall for the sirens too, but I want to hear them." So he ordered his sailors to tie him to the mast with several ropes and told them to plug their ears with wax. He warned them, "When we're going through the reef and I hear the sirens, I won't be able to resist. I'll lose my mind, I'll scream at you, I'll insult you, I'll beg you to untie me. But no matter what I say, don't let me go until we're out of there." So everyone, except Odysseus, plugged their ears. They tied the king tightly to the mast. But when they entered the reef, it was worse than they expected. One sailor hadn't sealed his ears properly and threw himself into the sea. And Odysseus's hallucinations were so vivid that he went completely mad. With superhuman strength, he thrashed against the mast, and the sailors looked on in horror as they moved deeper and deeper into the reef. But before I tell you how it ends, stop and think. In your own life, how could you tie yourself to the mast? What strategy could you use to escape the sirens of your life? For example, Demosthenes, the Greek politician, to keep himself tied to the mast, would shave half his head and half his beard so he'd be too embarrassed to go out. And that helped him resist the temptation to party with his friends and girlfriends. And Victor Hugo was just as wild. When he was writing Les Miserables, he'd strip naked and give his clothes to his servant, telling him not to return them for 4 hours until he gets the work done. That way, when the sirens showed up, let's grab a beer. His friends.
Let's go to the park and make out.
His lovers. He was stuck at home, tied to the mast, and had to keep writing. Reaching your goals is easy when you tie yourself to the mast. Like me. I struggle with working out, but my roommate runs every day. So one day I gave him an envelope with $250 and told him, for the whole month if I skip even one run, you get to keep that money. Now, skipping a workout is expensive, and I didn't miss a single day. Or if you want to force yourself to eat healthy, you get rid of all the sirens in your house. Throw out the chips that sing so irresistibly. Toss the ice cream that calls to you every afternoon. Kick out all the sirens and tie yourself to the mast by filling your fridge with veggies, chicken, and meat. In your own life, who are your sirens, and how can you tie yourself to the mast? Back to Odysseus. He hallucinated and saw the beautiful Penelope and his son Telemachus crying out from the reef.
Odysseus, we love you. Don't leave us here. Come to us.
And with all his strength, he tried to break free to go to them. But because he was smart and had tied himself to the mast, even though he didn't have the willpower to resist the sirens, he made it through the reef. And a few days later, he reclaimed his throne in Ithaca and was reunited with his family. Chapter 6 of Atomic Habits talks about this. How you can design your environment to make it easier to resist temptation and achieve your goals.